and welcome back.
Yeah, here are some of the topics we're focusing on this half an hour.
Credit scores going up for millions of Americans. Sounds like good news, right? Well, actually, there's a downside to this. We'll explain.
Also, unicorns are mythical and magical. They're also ruining our economy, apparently. Why we should be feeding zebras instead of hunting for unicorns, and why I'm actually very serious about this story and what it has to do with your wallet just ahead.
Do you open the fridge and then say, wait, what am I doing here? Well, that's actually common. There may be things you can do to build your memory and will make you feel better about even some of the biggest memory athletes forgetting things too. We have a local doctor joining us in studio.
Thank goodness. We are also live right now behind the scenes on our Facebook page. Dusty is here. What question are we asking folks this morning, Dusty?
We're asking people what TV show they love to hate watch.
Hate watch!
Oh, The Bachelor.
I'm starting my list right now.
Yes, all of them.
But first, traffic. Talk about something I hate and watch, unfortunately. Traffic, one of the most stressful things we all deal with every day, especially here. But are the navigation apps we're using, well, trying to make it faster to get around, are they actually hurting us too?
That's what we were wondering. There are two examples that happened recently. You probably remember them. Just this week, a semi overturned on 405. Look at this mess. This was at the very beginning of the morning commute. Worst time ever. It blocked all lanes at one point. And then this, remember this a few weeks ago? An overturned tanker that shut down I-5 for an entire day. Well, in both of those cases, many drivers had to rely on their navigation apps to try and find a way around it. Well, those apps then sent people onto surface streets of otherwise quiet neighborhoods. So we brought up this issue with Mark Hallenbeck. He's the director of the Washington State Transportation Center, and he says there's actually another reason more and more people are hopping off the highways and main drags.
What's happened is Waze has made it way easier. Google Maps has made it way easier. Because when you were just driving to that kid's soccer game at Lower Woodland, you didn't know which streets went through and which streets didn't go through, and you were reluctant to pull into those neighborhoods to get off of 50th, which was a mess. But now you have great confidence that Google Maps will tell you which roads go through and how you can get there. And so more people are more adventurous than they used to be.
Adventurous is a good way to put it. And with more traffic flowing through otherwise quiet streets, it's a concern for neighborhoods. Travis, you were just talking about this a few weeks ago. You're seeing this on your street, too.
Yeah, I can tell when traffic is bad on the main arterials that are outside of our neighborhood at commute times, because I can watch the traffic get bad on our tiny little residential street, and I see people on their phones. This happened not too long ago. Major accident very near us, and our tiny, tiny little street just off the Arboretum was gridlocked for 2 hours from like 5 to 7, and everybody sitting in front of our house had their phones out, and I know Waze and Google Maps was sending them down our street, which was crazy.
And dangerous, I would imagine. It's quiet, you've got kids and pets running around.
I was worried about, like, what if something had gone wrong and I needed to get out of the house, get to the hospital, whatever. There was no getting down our tiny little residential street, and certainly probably once I got to the main street, there was no getting around.
Right. So, I mean, our biggest question was, so what can we do? We asked Mark, can the city at least game the system or something to lessen the pressure? He said no. But Travis, in some other major cities, neighbors are starting to.
What you've seen in LA and San Francisco is neighbors post accidents on Waze, and they say, oh, there's a crash here, and you call your neighbor and say, verify my crash, and then you start telling Waze that bad things are happening, and then Waze believes you until someone who's on the street and who's trying to drive quickly says, there's no accident at 15th and 23rd, you know, that's bogus. So that's where the gaming of the system comes in.
Okay, but something the city of Seattle or any of our cities, they have to be able to do something, not just us going rogue Robin Hood on these apps, right?
I love the way you put that, too. That was my thought, too. So there is, but they're already doing it. Oh. Mark says engineers joke that Seattle leads the nation in traffic circles, and that's not too far from the truth. Those circles theoretically slow traffic down, as do something called chicanes. Those are the extended sidewalks on either side so that if you and a car are facing each other, like each of you have to alternate who goes first and passing through. The problem with that, though, as you mentioned, emergency vehicles, or what if you have an emergency you need to leave, that slows down emergencies too. So is there a solution? Not as long as people are determined to find the fastest route home. But Mark does say city planners can keep an eye on this as pass-through traffic promises to become an even bigger problem. And maybe down the line, they can start warning people and find ways around it.
At least I guess we're trying, and now we know that it is an issue.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the other things causing traffic, new companies coming to our area, they drive the economy, startups, we celebrate them, we talk about them, Wall Street rewards them. But what if that's magical thinking? What if we are chasing unicorns when we should be feeding zebras? I know it sounds bizarre, but here's the essay from Medium.com. this really sparked my interest. Zebras will fix what unicorns break. The idea here is the argument goes that the investors and the reporters, they love startups. They talk about them constantly. They are forever chasing the magical unicorn. But these are just mythical startups, and we believe that they'll change everything and that they're going to make a whole lot of money. That's why we like them. But all the attention and all that money can actually hurt the economy when these don't pan out, because a lot of them, most of them, don't. So instead of make-believe animals or these mythical startups, instead we should be focusing on these. Zebras is the idea here. Companies that run in the black, get it, zebras, and profitability in the white, improving society, get it, white and black. Zebras also run in herds and protect each other. And finally, they have peerless stamina and they are survivors. So the idea here is, let's go for these kind of companies, not the unicorns. An example of a unicorn would be Snapchat, for example. Investors in Wall Street super excited. Zebra, Microsoft. So which company do you think drives the economy better in the long run? I think zebras.
Boy, Team Zebra all the way. Credit scores for millions of Americans will be going up this summer thanks to a change by 3 national bureaus that put those scores together. So here's the Washington Post headline on this. Many mortgage applicants will get a surprise boost in their credit score. That sounds great, right? The Post says thanks to a little-known policy shift, those credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, they're planning to stop collecting and reporting a substantial amount of civil judgments and tax lien information beginning July 1st. Both of those are things that can drag your credit score down. So without them, your credit score will likely rise.
Which sounds like good news for us, right? But of course, there's a downside, and it's a pretty significant downside as well. It actually could be risking having more people who are more likely to default on loans getting approved for things like home loans, which in the end may make the housing market kind of more unstable, which just doesn't feel good.
It sounds suspiciously familiar, which is why we wanted to delve a little bit more into this. James Young is the research director at the Runstad Center for Real Estate Studies at UW. What should we make of this credit score news, James?
Well, I think that credit standards and everything else changed so much after the last downturn and everything else that lenders were being very conservative for a long time. And I think the changes made in the credit scores may boost people's credit scores a bit, but I think they're looking more at monthly payment histories, people's ability to pay over time, and that sort of thing. So given that that's how they're using the credit scores now, the default information and the tax lien information isn't nearly as important as it used to be. They're looking more into the history and whether people are going to be able to make the payments on the houses or not. So there's a lot of sort of different scoring mechanisms in place, and lenders in mortgage markets have been very, very conservative for a long time. So I think that while history may not repeat itself, it may rhyme pretty good, but not right now.
What about this news that we're seeing perhaps more riskier borrowers out there? First, are you seeing the same thing? Are you hearing the same thing? And then what could that mean?
Well, I think that this is from a story that appeared, I think, a couple of weeks ago, where the FHA had a slightly higher default rate and so forth. And I think we need to remember that the FHA focuses in on borrowers that don't have much of a down payment. They're very conservative to begin with. I know the Federal Reserve had been all over the FHA for being too conservative in their standards. So I think that given the default rate is still very, very low for FHA loans and for first-time buyers, I don't think that this is going to be a major issue. We have to remember that FHA loans only make up about a little over 20% of the market. And with that little in the marketplace, I mean, these are the riskiest borrowers that have low down payments and have the highest risk of negative equity. But I also think that given the low default rates, the stringent credit criteria that have been in place, and the difficulty in people with bad credit scores to obtain mortgages over the past several years, that we're kind of a long way from any kind of brewing problem in those types of markets.
We just have a small amount of time left, so quickly. The Fed's raised the interest rates this week. How might that or could that impact home buyers or renters here in Western Washington?
Well, I don't think it's going to be too much of an effect. I mean, if you look at a 25 or 250 basis point rise in interest rates, you're looking at a $480,000 mortgage, which is median house price at $600.
Wow.
So you're talking about probably an increase in $70 in the monthly mortgage repayment. So it's not a whole lot yet. I think that the rental market, especially the tightness in the housing market right now, is going to play a major impact in terms of the rent-own relationship and all those sorts of things. But that's another story.
So we're going to take a deep breath for right now. This is not a bubble that's happening.
Well, for right now, I think it's okay. And I think that given the sharp adjustment in some of the submarkets that you saw after the 2006-2008 crisis and everything, after you saw that sharp adjustment, we're only coming back to some of the fundamentals that have been in place for a long time.
Because I hyperventilate anytime 2008 even smells familiar at this point. So
Yes, indeed, yes. That was a very major event.
I don't want to go back to that place again.
James Young, thank you very much, Research Director at the Runstad Center for Real Estate Studies at UW. We appreciate you being here very much.
Thank you.
So unless you've been living under a rock, you know the finale of The Bachelor happened this week.
Now, maybe you don't care,
watched
but
it.
maybe you're just pretending that you cared. Yeah, I watched. The show's been around for 21 seasons, consistently gets millions of viewers, and in fact, nearly 9 million people tuned in to Monday's finale.
But ask people why they watch, and you might be surprised at the answer. Take a look at this headline from CNN. It basically says we're hate watching these shows. They interviewed the folks who actually describe this as the way that we watch football. We're guessing who's going to win, who we're rooting for, watching which of our friends are who's into what. We're tweeting along as we go. All of this happening in
real
record
time.
numbers. Yeah.
And it's not just The Bachelor. A lot of reality shows, Real Housewives, Dancing with the Stars, Survivor, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. That one's for Bavisha, our
Yes, it is.
producer. Experts say we have so much stress in our daily lives. We just want to get away from it. So watching shows that don't at all resemble our own reality is an escape. Plus, we get to kind of be voyeurs and watch in.
And we can say, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," and then go back to our real lives. They say it doesn't even matter whether we like it or not, hence the hate watching, as long as we feel like we're part of something and we're focusing on something other than our daily stresses.
It's my escape to watch those terrible programs.
Yeah, you don't have to apologize for it.
Okay, good, because I
We
was
all
about
hate
to.
watch.
Okay, good.
Still ahead. Do you ever walk into a room and forget why you're there? I don't know why I'm here right now.
All the time. Why does this happen? Can we make our memories better? A local doctor stops by next to explain. Good morning and welcome back. Could you memorize an entire deck of cards in 17 seconds?
Yeah, no, neither could we. But that is what a medical student, Alex Mullen, did to become the reigning world memory champion, setting a world record in the process.
Yeah.
So here's the CNN story where we talk about all of this. This new study says that any of us can actually train our brain to use the same tricks as the top memory athletes like Alex.
It may reassure you to know Alex, world memory champion, forgets his car keys just like the rest of us. The study compared brain scans of top memory athletes to those of rookies after 6 weeks of brain training. Doing things like this, it takes a minute. They ask you to memorize 20 cards. If you try it on CNN's website, let us know how you do. But basically, it's a series of practice tests, the same that the experts do, and the rookies were just as good as the pros after 6 weeks of practice.
So it's like calisthenics for your brain. Astounding information, especially as people battle memory issues associated with Alzheimer's, dementia. So we have Dr. Mead with Swedish Medical Center. She is here. She's over on the couch. We're going to talk to her and maybe get some advice about training our brain and helping our memory. So what was your reaction when you heard the findings to the study initially?
Well, I only got 9 out of 20 when I tried.
Okay, you make us all
And
feel
I'm a
better.
really good memorizer because I went to medical school. So I was very interested to read about how I could make myself do better.
So are the techniques things that we could all really do?
Absolutely. I think the techniques are really easy. I think the thing to keep in mind when we think about studies like this is that it seems that this really improves your kind of like official memory training brain, but it may not work for everyday memory loss, like forgetting your keys.
It looks like flashcards for your brain is the way I kind of interpreted the training.
Exactly. I think there's a lot of training your brain to recognize colors and spatial relationships, and that's not something that we work on necessarily every day.
I love the concept of the memory palace, too, which we've talked about before,
Yeah.
kind of like spatially putting things in boxes almost in your brain.
Exactly. Putting things in boxes, putting things in familiar places that you can sort of relate to, I think is a much easier way for us to remember things.
Easier said than done sometimes.
I know.
I have a hard time. I mean, I've noticed too, as we all age, our memories seem to change.
Yeah.
Why is that? What's physiologically, what's going on with our brains?
There's multiple different things. So our brains actually shrink as we get older.
What?
In volume, I
Lovely.
know. So we think it peaks in about the mid-20s, and then it's sort of a very slow decline from there. So unfortunately, we're all downhill. So that's one thing. We can lose some of our neuronal connections, so there's synapses and connections between neurons, and then also decreased blood flow to the brain is something that happens as people get older. And so we think that all of this affects function.
But it is not something that happens to every person in the same way in the same time period.
Right.
Like my memory might start to, I don't know, go earlier than my husband's, for example.
It's very individual. So it happens with different speed for everybody. It happens with different severity for everyone. So there are some risk factors. You know, if you have a strong family history of Alzheimer's, especially at earlier ages, that may contribute. And then just general health. So if you have high blood pressure, diabetes, if you smoke, these are all things that we think may affect memory in the long term.
I can already see viewers watching this saying, oh no, I do feel more forgetful. How do we differentiate between, oh gosh, I forgot my keys and it's happening more often, and maybe I need to see a doctor, maybe this is something serious?
Yeah, well, I like to give people a couple of examples. So I say that, you know, if you forget where your keys are, that's pretty normal. If you forget what the key is used for or what you're supposed to do with it, that's more concerning. If you get to the grocery store and you think, I don't remember what I came for, that's also pretty normal and kind of part of everyday forgetfulness. But if you get there and you think, I don't know how to pick this out, I don't know how to pay the cashier, these are things that are more concerning. So I think if you have memory loss that's really significantly affecting your everyday life, then there may be something else going on.
So you mentioned general health stuff, but what about like what I'm eating or like doing the crossword on a daily basis? I mean, people say they can help your memory. Is there validity to that?
It's really mixed data. So I think when it comes to specific dietary changes or vitamin supplements, there's not good information that it really works in the long term. But certainly general health, so eating lots of fruits and vegetables, low processed foods, not smoking, being physically active, these are all things that are helpful in the long run. And then what we find with older adults is that people who are physically active, who are socially connected, even as older adults, and mentally engaged, so they're still learning new things and doing things with their brain, those people tend to have less rates of dementia, or it occurs at a later age.
We talk a lot about nostalgia on this show. We even talked about meatloaf today and yesterday, and so many people associate meatloaf and the smell of it with specific memories.
Yeah.
What happens as we get older to that nostalgia? Because you hear stories of people when they get around something specific or they smell something again, it triggers an emotional response. How does that relate to memory loss?
Well, olfactory memory, which is that smell memory, is really strong, probably stronger than any of the other senses, and we think that's because of the structure of the brain. Smells actually go straight to the brain, whereas other senses have to pass through the thalamus. So this is a really strong memory sense, and there's some data that says that it's pretty well preserved as you get older, and there's some that says that it declines just like everything else. So it's a little bit unclear right now, and it's probably really individual to the person.
I think a lot of people are going to hear this and they're going to say, well, there's so much we don't know.
Yes.
Like, what's going to change tomorrow? And maybe I should just throw up my hands. I mean, it sounds like to me, just be healthier and be more cognizant of it, and then know what the warning signs could be.
Absolutely. I think taking care of yourself, so eating healthy foods, staying physically active, but really remaining socially connected and continuing to learn new things as you age is probably something that's quite protective in the long term.
So it is possible. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
I think also as we watch our parents get older and our grandparents get older, is there anything that we can do? I know that we can't jolt a memory, but I've heard of people trying to bring things that are familiar or what are some ways that we can help our aging parents and grandparents as this happens?
I think just talking about things is really helpful. So asking them to talk about family stories or memories and kind of keep those things alive is going to be helpful to them. You know, it's really stressful for older people too when they start to forget things. So it's also good to normalize it and just say, oh yeah, I forgot that the other day. This is not just because you're getting older. This is something that happens to all of us.
Is stress part of it too as well? I mean, I was good in stressful situations and I could start a sentence without knowing where I was going and get there.
Yeah.
And now I feel like if I've got a lot of stress, if I start a sentence, I'm like, nope, I don't know where I have no idea where I was going.
Well, that's probably just part of us all getting older, to be honest. But stress can certainly affect your executive functioning of your brain in lots of different ways, and memory is one of those things, absolutely.
Awesome. Dr. Mead, thank you very much. We
Happy
appreciate
St. Patrick's
it.
Day.
Try to
I remembered.
Hey, good job.
You got your green on.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We appreciate it. So still ahead, any shows that you just hate to watch and yet you do.
Every time.
That's exactly right. We're over on our Facebook page. Dusty is there right now. We want to hear your answers because after the break, he's going to sit on the couch with us and tell us some of the shows you hate to watch.
And take a look at your screen for our Friday trivia. Yes, it is St. Patrick's Day related. Take a look. We'll have the answer coming up right on the other side of this break. Oh, there's even a hint. How nice of our producer, Bavisha. Ahoy! I don't know what ahoy is that. Sorry. I was trying to think of how to say hi with an O in front of it, and then ahoy came out.
Ahoy.
Just pretend that didn't happen, all right? Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm not going to fake an accent this time. I'm so sorry. Here is our trivia question. How many pints of Guinness are consumed on St. Patty's Day? Clarification, this is worldwide. Travis, what was your...
I went with 13 because I have no idea.
And I went with 8 million, right?
Yeah, million, not 13 total. 13 million. Dusty, do you have an answer? What are you guessing?
Whatever the biggest one was.
The 38 million.
Yeah.
All right, Bavisha, reveal the answer.
13!
Travis,
I
you
got
were
it!
right!
This is the first time
Hey!
I know about
Hey!
drinking. Congratulations, Travis.
Congratulations.
I'm good at drinking.
Did you just say congratulations, Travis?
Yes, I did.
Oh, yay, me!
Good job, me.
I'm very proud of you.
Ahoy to me.
Ahoy to me. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I said that. So we've been asking this morning, are there any shows you hate watch? And I mean like, oh, I hate that show. And then you go to the corner and you watch it.
It's on DVD, your whole DVD. Dusty, get in here. You've been running our Facebook Live all morning, asking folks this very question. What have people been telling you, the shows that they hate watch?
Don't be shy.
No,
You
come on in.
oh,
Come
sorry.
on
You know,
in.
there was one that I expected to see a lot of, and I apologize, producer Bavisha, but we only got one Kardashians. I thought that would be the number one response by far, but no, only one Kardashians. A lot of Walking Dead. I was a little bit surprised by that.
Walking Dead.
Did they have any reasons for Walking Dead?
No, just no.
I feel like I watched that show, was really liking it. In the last couple of seasons, things have gotten kind of tedious, but I do feel like I invested this long, so I watch it, and then that makes me hate watch it, so that might be part of the investment.
Yeah, I tried it, and I hated it right from the get-go. So.
And that was that.
Yeah, I'm too much of a snob to actually hate watch something.
Do you
so.
hate watch? Okay, you don't hate
No.
watch anything.
My lovely wife hate watches Grey's Anatomy, so I guess I hate watch that by extension. And I guess I do hate it when I watch it, so I kind of hate watch it.
What about you, Travis?
I actually did used to hate watch The Bachelor when I worked at another place. Like, it was our job to watch The Bachelor and then live tweet it. And I played this character, not played because I really did hate The Bachelor. But I can also tell you about like 3 of the seasons that I watched, which is really embarrassing and ridiculous.
Did you find yourself having to not respond when people at a bar were like, can you believe blah, blah got kicked off
yeah.
on blah, blah? You're like, oh, yeah. I mean, no, I don't.
We would interview them after they got kicked off on the air the next time, and I always knew the inside, and I wanted to be like, oh, no, that's not right. She's really nice. Or, oh, she's terrible. And I can't, I'm like, good gracious.
If we had an hour, I still wouldn't have time to list all of the shows I hate watch because I am a garbage human being.
No. But you did become a meatloaf convert today.
I did, yes. I know. Amazing, right? All right, remember we're here every Friday morning, 9:30.